Raw general manager Adam Pearce frequently describes the Monday Night Show as WWE's flagship. And he's right. For decades, though, it's also been the A brand, the A Show. Though in the past few years, that seems to have shifted over to SmackDown. Now, after watching Raw this past Monday, I started thinking that things are changing. Is Raw now, or is it quickly becoming the A Show? Let's take a look. Welcome to Silo Voice Wrestling on YouTube, the Silo Voice Wrestling podcast from Silo Voice Studios in Montreal. I'm Jason C. McLean. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and of course, ring that bell for notifications to get all my predictions, opinions, hot takes, cold takes, simmering takes, and TKOs, a little pun there, from the wrestling world. I watch Raw, SmackDown, and WWE PLEs. And of course, we're here to talk about Raw and SmackDown, but I'm not really talking in terms of ratings. Yes, ratings is one of the main reasons why SmackDown has been considered the A show, at least ratings in the US. But now Raw is moving to Netflix, so that could be why things are changing, where ratings don't really matter. But we're not really talking about ratings. We're talking about the feel of the show. And to put things in context, this is Thursday, May the 9th, 2024 in the afternoon when I'm recording it. I have seen the Raw on Monday. I haven't seen SmackDown tomorrow yet, obviously, because it hasn't happened yet. And in watching this Raw, I started noticing things. I started noticing that it seemed bigger. It seemed like a way more exciting show, just the same way that the Raw draft show seemed more exciting than the SmackDown draft show, and not just because of the picks. So is there something to this? Well, let's go back in time a bit. For most of 2023, a little bit before and a little bit after as well, Raw has seemed kind of formulaic. Almost every show would start with the Judgment Day. They'd be in it throughout. There was even a meme about this, and it would usually end with a six-man tag or a regular tag match that somehow turned into a six-man tag, or a singles match that somehow turned into a six-man tag involving members of the Judgment Day versus an assortment of Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, earlier on Kevin Owens, then later on Jey Uso. Now, this did lead to an amazing War Games match at Survivor Series. And these were good matches with top stars. But the sheer repetitiveness of it did give it kind of a, I'm not going to say boring, but a kind of a predictable feel to the outline of the show. Gunther was also on the show, but unlike his run on SmackDown, you didn't think he was fighting anyone who would actually beat him, especially not on Raw. I thought Chad Gable might have had a chance, or I wanted to see that, but I didn't think he would win. Same thing for a few other people. But yeah, you just knew he wasn't going to win. It wasn't the same excitement. And the women's division, well, Rhea Ripley was dominant, but you knew nobody was going to beat her. Near the end, Nia Jax came into the picture. Becky Lynch came into that picture. Liv Morgan returned. And that was interesting at the top. As far as the mid-card, well, when Trish Stratus was there fighting with Becky and Zoe Stark was involved, that was interesting, but that didn't last too long. Actually, even though it lasted a bit longer than it should have. And then even though Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, Tegan Nox, Natalia, who else? Chelsea Green, Piper Niven. They were entertaining. They were good, but it didn't really have that big match feel. It didn't really feel like that strong a division. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, we had the Bloodline saga. In 2023 and early 2024, there were amazing Bloodline segments with Sami Zayn sort of as a member of the group, and then he was no longer there. And then it involved Jey and Jimmy Uso, and they were no longer there. It did get a little bit stagnant after SummerSlam, but they filled that gap with stars like LA Knight, yeah. And then The Rock returned, making SmackDown must-see TV. Even beyond the Bloodline and LA Knight, there was Logan Paul with Kevin Owens. There was Rey Mysterio, LWO versus Legado del Fantasma. It went on a bit too long, but it was still very interesting, at least for a while. And they had a really strong and, most importantly, a seemingly full women's division. Bayley and Damage Control, Bianca Belair, Team Charlotte Flair was there for a while. Yeah, it felt good, compelling, and strong. But now things are changing. And while Jade Cargill's now on SmackDown in the women's division is that much stronger because this force, this presence is part of it. And in fact, her and Bianca are the tag champions. Damage Control are now on Raw. Even with Asuka injured, their addition to the Red brand means way more than the loss of them does to the blue brand. SmackDown's women's division is fine, but now Raw's women's division has a faction in it, has more stars in it to compete with the other women. Things got really interesting. It feels like they don't really have an undercard, or the undercard is definitely defined as an undercard. They're not trying to make them part of the main event. And it's just going to pay dividends, I think, and it's making the show that much more interesting. Plus, there's the Intercontinental title scene. Currently, that's Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and Big Bronson Reed. They have a triple threat match coming up in Saudi Arabia. Now, Sami Zayn was pretty prominent on Raw last year after being drafted there. He was one of the tag champions, but then soon enough, him and Kevin lost that. Kevin was away, and he seemed like a over babyface that didn't really have a place. He was sort of helping out the group of Cody and Seth or whoever, maybe fighting with some people, having some matches. It feels now like he has a real character and a real importance on the show, commensurate with his ability as a star. Again, I'm a huge Sami Zayn fan, and I like the fact that he's being used well. And this whole scene is very interesting. And the former Intercontinental champion Gunther is there as well, too. Yes, he was on Raw last year as the champion, and the only thing about him was the fact that he was the champion. As I said, his matches didn't really seem to have that big match feel. But now, as somebody fighting for something, the guy who's targeting rather than being the target, as he said, his story seems way more interesting. And he seems like, surprisingly, way more of a star, even though he's not the Intercontinental champion, probably because he's going for a world championship. And then we have some of the matches on the last show alone. Jey Uso versus Finn Balor was a solid opener. Ilya Dragunov versus Ricochet was amazing and a great way to establish a new star. Natalya looked way better than she has in years, or since I've started watching again, in her match against Io Sky. And I would say in this match, Io even put on a better performance than she did against Bayley, where she lost the championship. She seemed really fiery in this one. Dakota Kai put on a great performance. She hasn't done that in a while against Lyra Valkyria, who she really built as an incoming star. And what can you say about Gunther versus Sheamus that hasn't already been said? This was a Clash at the Castle, a Stadium PLE rematch. In fact, it's a rematch from a match that many consider to be the best match of 2023. And we got it on Raw, and it was great. It was excellent. It was the kind of thing you don't expect to get on, as they say in the States, free TV. Me, it's I get it on a streaming service I pay for. Same thing when it switches to Netflix, but I'm Canadian. That's a whole other story. It was an amazing match, not the kind of match you usually get on Raw. But of course, there were angles too, namely more great build with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. This was funny. This was petty, edgy, just what you'd expect from two big stars like this, from these two specific guys. It wasn't physical because it can't be on either part. When it does get physical, it'll blow the roof off the place, assuming the place has a roof. They might do it in the stadium. It's great to see. There was also a continuation of the Becky Lynch Liv Morgan angle, now involving Damage Control and maybe Lyra Valkyria. That was interesting to see too. It's good to see that Raw hasn't given up its angles to focus on more matches. Now, this show felt hot. This show felt good. And they're doing it with Cody Rhodes on a different brand, with Rhea Ripley injured and not there, with Seth Rollins injured and not there, and with Punk and Drew not able to get physical. That's quite impressive. This seems like a turning of the page for Raw. But of course, the show did start with Judgment Day, because some things never change. Okay, full disclosure, this is an add-on, an addendum, a re-record, because there was some stuff I had forgotten to include. I'm recording this May 12th, Sunday afternoon. Happy Mother's Day. That means I did see Smackdown on Friday. And yeah, the matches, Smackdown was almost all matches except for that Cody and Logan promo at the beginning. That's an interesting choice, but that's a subject for another video. Great matches. Stars like Randy Orton, Tama Tonga was good, AJ Styles. SmackDown definitely has its quality of matches, especially during the King and Queen of the Ring tournament. I suspected that might have been one of the reasons why Raw was so match heavy. And yeah, that's why SmackDown's match heavy as well, too. Who knows when things simmer out. But my overall opinions don't really change. In fact, there's more to add to it. Now, I was going to mention, in fact, I did mention in my original recording of the ending that the bloodline has changed, and I definitely like how the bloodline has changed. In fact, I made a whole video, which is over here, about how I love this new bloodline direction. So SmackDown still has that going, but Raw isn't outweighed by it. That's, I guess, kind of my point. Also, while it definitely is a big bonus to SmackDown to have both Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair signed there, the fact that they're tag team champions, women's tag champions, is actually a bonus to Raw as well, because as women's tag champs, they can go on both brands. So that level of star power in the women's division, while mainly on SmackDown, can also mix with the stars on Raw, and they can also appear on Raw as well, too. It makes Raw even stronger. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is Raw has the best ring announcer in the business. Some say of all time. I think the jury's still out on that one, but definitely the best one going, Samantha Irvin. She's on Raw. Also, no disrespect to Corey Graves and Wade Barrett. They're great. But Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are, I think, the best commentary team in WWE going right now, and they're on Raw as well, too. So it's like they're positioning Raw to be either the A show or at least have the same kind of clout as SmackDown. So that's kind of my ultimate takeaway, ultimate conclusion. I think they're maybe moving in this direction ahead of the eventual move to Netflix because they got a lot of money from Netflix. They're still keeping SmackDown strong, but I think Raw is at least at par right now, and very soon maybe the A show. Follow at Silo Wrestling on X, at SVS Reviews on Instagram and Facebook, and me at Jason C. McLean on X and Instagram. So do you think Raw is becoming the new WWE A show? Do you think it is already? Do you think the shows are evening out? Am I completely wrong? Are you enjoying Raw more? Are you looking forward to this new direction that it's going in? Let me know in the comments. And of course, catch me next time. For Silo Voice Studios in Montreal, I'm Jason C. McLean.